Well, and I think sometimes for some moms, doing something for yourself isn't as motivating as doing it for your kids. Like
Right, definitely.
we will do things for our kids that we wouldn't necessarily do for ourselves. So if you're at, if you're listening and you're at that place where you're like, I don't necessarily want to do this for myself. If you can start to think of like how it's going to benefit your children's lives and your
Yes.
children's experience, sometimes that can be the motivation that you need to start to make some changes.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Mom Does It All. If you're looking for encouragement, empowerment, and uplifting in motherhood and mompreneurship, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Marta Spurk, triplet mom, certified success coach, and all things motivation extraordinaire. In this episode, I'll be chatting with Amber Brueseke. She's a certified personal trainer, a fitness instructor, and a registered nurse. But first and foremost, she is a mom of 4. She coaches moms to prioritize their health and really make nutrition simple. She has the best way of explaining things. Seriously, we talked about strength training versus cardio, counting macros, and all of the things. Let's just get right to it. Hi, Amber. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for us to chat, talk about fitness and health, because that's what you're all about, and more. So I wanted to start with kind of learning a little bit more about your story, how you got started with this passion, and then transitioning into helping people with their health, with their fitness, and, tapping into the entrepreneurial side of things as well. So go ahead.
Totally. Well, growing up, I would never, ever in a million years have thought I would be where I am today. Like my dad has kind of an entrepreneur spirit, and he always was trying to get us as kids to like start a business and do window washing and like wash cars. And like, he always wanted us to start businesses. And I like never did. I had no desire to do that. And so if you had told me back then that I would start a business, I would have looked at you like you had 4 eyes. I was like, that's not anything I want to do. But it kind of fell into my lap. So it started with a love of fitness. My mom was a fitness instructor growing up. And so I grew up in a household where going to the gym was just like the norm. Eating healthy food was just the norm. It was just like what we did. We ran races as a family, and it just kind of was how I grew up. And I wasn't scared of the weight room because my mom went to the weight room. Like I saw my mom do it. So I just assumed that like, yeah, of course women grow up lifting weights. Like that's
Right.
the thing that you do. As I grew a little bit older and kind of, went away from home, I kind of started to recognize, no, like this is something that not a lot of women do. And I, through a fitness journey, started teaching classes, got a little bit into like powerlifting. I'm doing CrossFit now. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit in different areas of fitness, but there came a point where I just had this crazy idea one day that I should start an Instagram. And so I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw these fitness ladies and I was like, I do all of the things that they do. Like, why do they have a fitness page and I don't? So just kind of on a whim, I started my page, Biceps After Babies, and things just kind of exploded from there. I gained a lot of traction pretty quickly with followers. And then, people started asking me, well, how did you do what you did, right? Like, I got a 6-pack. Like, how did you start lifting? Like, how do you do all these things? And so then they start asking for like advice and for coaching. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess there's a bunch of people who like want help. Like I'm happy to start helping them. And so that's how my company Biceps After Babies was born. It just kind of came naturally as people started asking for advice and help. And I started really realizing that I loved doing it. I loved helping women to be their best selves. And I feel like over the 3 years that I've had my business, that I've really started to come to understand and refine what my mission is. And I think in the fitness industry, and we can get into this a little bit later, but I think in the fitness industry, there's a lot focused on looks and aesthetics and fitting a certain pant size. And that is not what I'm about. And that's not like my target market. That is not who I speak to. I speak to mostly moms who want to feel good and want to build confidence. And what I've really found is that building that confidence comes through doing hard things. And one of those hard things that you can do is challenging yourself in the gym and in fitness.
Yes, and I can totally relate to that message. I love that. I love the name of your business, Biceps After Babies. That's so cute and so cool. I love it.
It was one of those things. It was like, I really want moms to understand that, like, you don't have to do it. Like, if you haven't lifted weights in your 20s, you
Mhm.
before you had kids, like, you haven't missed out.
Right.
You can have your babies, and then you can have your best self
Hmm.
after that. You can go back to the gym, you can get your body to be the way that you want it to be. It doesn't have to be a mutually exclusive thing.
Totally. And that's definitely something that I talk a lot about is that sometimes we feel like, well, I've never done this. Now that I'm a mom, I can't do it. And it's quite the opposite. Now that you're a mom, you should and you can do all of the things. So that's where Mom Does It All came from, because it's like nothing is stopping you now. You're a mom.
Right. Well, and how powerful is it? Like, I mean, I'm a great example of, like, I grew up with a mom who was an example of health and fitness to me. And
Yes.
so as moms, I almost feel like we even have more of a responsibility because we have these little kids that are looking up to us, and they are learning about their bodies, and they are learning about health, and they are learning about nutrition
Yes.
through their experience of their mother. And so I feel like as moms, we almost have even more of a responsibility to make that a priority in our lives so that our kids get that basis from a very early age.
Yes, definitely. Setting that example, right? Being our
Exactly.
best self, like what you're saying, being our best self, not only for ourselves, but for them too, so that they can learn to be their best selves and it just never ends.
Well, and I think sometimes for some moms, doing something for yourself isn't as motivating as doing it for your kids. Like,
Right, definitely.
we will do things for our kids that we wouldn't necessarily do for ourselves. So if you're at if you're listening and you're at that place where you're like, I don't necessarily want to do this for myself, if you can start to think of like how it's going to benefit your children's lives and your
Yes,
children's experience, sometimes that can be the motivation that you need to start to make some changes.
definitely. I love that. It could go both ways, and people are different. They can relate to different things. So that's a really really important message. Thank you for saying that. And one of the things that you mentioned too is that there are different targets in within the same industry that you're in. Like people have different a different focus or a different message, and yours is just that if you didn't have any experience before or whatever, it doesn't change anything. You can still start from now and set a great example for your kids. And you said it took some time to kind of narrow down your mission. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because did you have like a
Yeah.
different direction first starting out?
Well, so the name of my business has always been Biceps After Babies. But I think, as I came into the industry, I've always had kind of a self-love vibe and like, oh, improve yourself, you versus you mentality. It's not you versus anybody else. And so that hasn't necessarily changed. But I think over time, I've really come to understand that my focus is fitness, but that it's not fitness. It's so much more than fitness. And I think that's what I've really come to understand over the last couple of years is that, yeah, I'm like helping women lose weight. I'm helping women to start to lift weights. I'm helping to, women to be able to like have aesthetic goals or have physical goals. And yes, that's what I'm doing, but what that does for them is so much more in the long run. And so, yeah, it's about, seeing the scale drop, but it's also about you setting goals and you recognizing that, what, I'm really powerful and I can make a change in my life.
Yes.
And that bleeds out into other areas of your life. When you feel confident to like go and pick up a heavy barbell, you feel confident in other areas of your life
Yes.
and you take that job that scares you, or approach somebody who maybe you wouldn't like, that would be nervous to approach. And so I've just kind of started really to refine this idea that it's about fitness, but it's not about fitness. It's
Right.
about so much more than that.
So much more.
And my mission really is to empower women to look, feel, and be strong in all areas of their life, not just their physical sense.
Yes, that's beautiful. I love that. And it's so true too, because going back to what we were saying of moms don't necessarily want to do something for themselves, maybe thinking that they're doing this for their kids will help. And I think what you just said, can help as well in the sense of, yeah, I want to lose weight and I want to feel better in my own skin, but that's not the ultimate goal. It starts there, but it's bigger than that. It's just being confident with who you are, period, and just oozing that confidence in all areas of your life and just as a presence because you're feeling so well in your body. And it has nothing to do with vanity necessarily. It's just because I think most people are like, well, you're assuming just because I had a kid that I need to lose weight. And then they get mad and frustrated at society
Right.
because that's the thing that they're supposed to do. Well, you can look at it from a different perspective of, I want to feel confident in who I am. Because a lot of what I talk about is just finding your identity postpartum. And I feel like fitness plays a huge part in that, because where
Absolutely.
do you start when at first you have a baby? The first thing that comes to mind is I need to lose the baby weight, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Starts with that. So I love that. And I love, just your tone and your energy. It's just so empowering. And I can see why people would want to work with you. And I love that.
Yeah. And I really think too, just kind of one quick thing about confidence. Confidence is built by being faced with hard things and doing it.
Yes.
And by training your brain to understand that, like, yeah, that's hard, but guess what? I did the last hard thing that I needed to do. And I did the hard thing before that. And once you start to build and train your mind to be like, yeah, I've done it in the past. I've done hard things in the past. Then when you're faced with new challenges, you're like, yes, I can do it. And so when we talk about confidence, it is about really giving yourself hard things and being like, oh my gosh, I can do a pull-up. Oh my gosh, like I can be in control of my food. Oh my gosh, I can deadlift. Like those things build confidence. And so then when your child is diagnosed with a terminal illness, you recognize that, like, you know what, this is really hard, but I've done hard things in the past and I can continue to do hard things.
Totally. Yes, I love that. And it's also like seeking new challenges, seeking to keep making yourself uncomfortable, which I feel like we need to get this message out there of you need to seek scary things, because that's the path that you take to be stronger, right? And fitness definitely puts you on that path, 100%.
I love the quote, there's no growth in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the growth zone.
Yes, that's totally true. Love it. Okay, cool. So just in general about your business, and I love, love, love your message. Now let's get to some specifics, because I know when we talk about fitness and you were talking about weight and all of that, people have some misconceptions, right? Or even just lots of mixed information out there of this is what you should do. And that's one of the things that is just so hard. Like for some years, eggs are the devil, don't eat eggs. And then for some years, it's like eat eggs all day long and you're going to be, healthy and thin, right? So I wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition, because that was one of the topics that you wanted to cover, that you're that you focus on, and also about the difference between weightlifting and cardio, because there's lots of misconceptions in that sense too of women. Okay, so where do I start? I guess I just have to run on the treadmill every day to burn the Snickers that I ate yesterday.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about like the fat burning and what works, what not works, and then we can move into nutrition?
Yeah. So I think what's really important, and this pertains to both nutrition and exercise, is that the most effective thing that you can do is the thing that is sustainable for you.
Right.
And I think that gets lost a lot of times in translation when people are always searching for the best or the fastest or the newest and the shiniest, that they forget that who cares how amazing a diet plan is or how effective a workout is if you aren't going to actually do it.
Right.
You're going to get zero results. And so I think, yes, we can start to talk about what's an effective way to set up a workout plan, what's an effective way to organize your food, but it always comes back to what is the most sustainable for you and what are you willing to do it long term. And that for you is going to be the best thing.
Yes.
Now, when we're talking about exercise, there's always this debate of cardio versus weights. And it's one of the most frequent questions that I get is like, how much cardio, how much weights, how do we split that up? Like what's the ideal split? The first thing is, yes, of course it comes down to if you hate weightlifting and you're going to be miserable while you do it, I don't want you lifting weights.
Right.
I want you doing something that you enjoy, because then you're going to actually do it.
Yes.
The value of lifting weights, I really like to look at it. It's almost like a savings account versus a checking account. So, for weights, it's like a savings account. You do a little bit and you grow interest on it over time. And so you don't necessarily burn as many calories while you're lifting weights, but over time you're earning interest on it because you're creating more muscle mass. More muscle mass is more metabolically active, increases your metabolic rate. And so you're kind of like, it's exponentially growing over time slowly.
Nice.
Whereas like cardio is like what you put in is what you get out, right? It's like your checking account. Like you put in 30 minutes, you get out 30 minutes of caloric burn. And there's a time and a place for that. But if we're talking about over the long haul, really, doing healthy things for your body that are going to help you in the long run by increasing your metabolic rate, by keeping you strong, weightlifting really comes into play. And my husband recently got into weightlifting about 2-3 years ago. So at the age of like 35, right? So he's like kind of late to the game too. He never lifted as a teenager. Like, was this skinny guy growing up. He's a physician. And so he went to medical school and didn't have any time and residency and all of that stuff. And finally, once he got to fellowship, he had a little bit of time and he was like, okay, we're going to try this weightlifting thing that you've been doing for forever. But his big reason that he decided to get into it was because as a physician, he saw he has a population of older ladies is kind of his population that he takes care of. They would come to him and they would not even be able to lift their legs up. Like they wouldn't even be able to like get up onto the examining table. They couldn't lift their legs up. They'd have to have someone come and like lift their legs up for them. And as he was seeing this, he was like, strength is so important. As you age, your strength only goes down. Okay. Once we hit a certain point, like muscle mass only decreases over time. And we can do things to mitigate it. Like lifting weights will help to like slow that progression down. But we have a period of time in our lives as we're in our younger years where we are able to build the muscle mass that we're going to have for the rest of our life.
Okay.
And so it's really important that we do that in these years because as we age, that muscle mass decreases and strength is one of the limiting factors for people getting into like nursing homes and having to have caregivers, because if you can't sit yourself on the toilet, if you can't, lift up a toilet seat, if you can't lift up your laundry, like all of those activities of daily living have to do with strength. And so gaining muscle mass now at this time in your life, like a lot of times my husband and I talk about why we're doing it now is so that when we're 70 years old, we can go hike the Grand Canyon and we can be active and we can like have healthy lives. And cardio is great. Like there's a place for it. Training your heart rate is great. But as far as like having a healthy life and having a healthy like aging process, strength is so, so important.
Oh my goodness. So much awesome information. And I love those analogies of the checking account, the savings account. That's just like, it paints the perfect picture to make it super relatable and understandable too. I love that. And the whole story about getting older and understanding that things will only go south, right?
Right. And it doesn't mean that you can't start lifting at age 70, right? But if you want to maximize, like you're going to always be able to grow muscle better in your 20s and your 30s than you are in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s. And so maximize that, man. Like my husband wishes he would have started lifting in his 20s because you just are able to grow muscle mass so much faster. But anytime, it's never, ever too late to start.
Well, and that's the thing too, like you mentioned, well, if you hate weightlifting, then you don't want to do something that you're going to be miserable doing, because the key point is you have to find something sustainable that you will do. Otherwise it doesn't work. But there are different ways that you can incorporate weightlifting, even if you absolutely despise it, so that you actually have some fun, right? And I'm sure you're a master at that. So just a little note there for people that are like, I hate it, but now I see the benefits of it. So what do I do?
Well, and I like to call it like what you really need is resistance training, right? Like it doesn't have to be weight training. You just have to have resistance. And so, maybe you like doing, strongman competitions, or you like there's ways to include strength training and resistance training in a way that is not just you going to the gym and picking up dumbbells. Even doing body weight, training, pull-ups, push-ups, like things like that. Even yoga, if you're really focusing on like progressive overload and like challenging your body in that way, you just really need to start thinking of it as like creating resistance for your body and working against that resistance, because that's what creates the stimulus for muscle growth.
Yes. And that's another great point too. Going back to what we were saying, oh, it's just, people get so consumed about the weight loss, about the scale. When you think about, okay, do you want to be stronger for when you're older? Or do you even want to be healthier to be around your kids? It's not that number on the scale that's going to define who you are. It's just physics, it's life, right?
Mm-hmm. What you're able to do.
Yeah, right. We're going to die one day. So how is it going to happen for you? Are you going to be around for longer? So thinking about these things and not just get so consumed with the whole weight and the weight.
Aesthetics. Yeah. And I would submit that if somebody says that they hate weightlifting, that they haven't tried the right type of weightlifting, because there's so many, right? Like you can go to a group class, you can do it on your own. You can go do CrossFit, you can try powerlifting, you can do Olympic weightlifting. Yeah. I mean, there's so many varieties of lifting. It doesn't just have to be you showing up at the gym and like running through sets of 3, 10 reps of 3.
Right. Yeah. And it's understanding the benefits too. And that's another thing that goes back to what we were saying, follow what's scary, follow what, the fear, and just don't give up on yourself so easily. Right. Yeah. It's annoying, but people are telling me it's going to be good for me. I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to find a way. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. A little bit like brushing your teeth. No one really likes to brush their teeth.
Oh my gosh. I use that example all the time. I say it because people are like, how are you always so motivated? How do you do this, and that? And I'm like, it becomes a habit, right?
Ding, ding, ding.
You're laying in on the couch, passed out. You don't want to wake up, brush your teeth, and then go to sleep. You just want to go to sleep. But then you remember, why do you brush your teeth? It's only going to take 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Go and do it. And it just boils down to most things in life. So
yeah, motivation starts the process, but if you don't transition that motivation to habit, it will never last. And so you can you're all motivated. Like, let's go. We're motivated to January 1st, let's get started.
Yes.
If you don't transition that motivation to habit, motivation is going to wane.
Yes.
And you have to have it into a habit.
Definitely. Love that. So let's move on to nutrition a little bit. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you handle with your clients and with people searching for help?
Yeah. I think one of the most basic things that people so misunderstand when it comes to nutrition and weight loss is that in order to see weight loss occur, you have to create a caloric deficit, meaning you have to eat less than you output, right? Than you like what your movement requires. And so many people get lost in that picture when it really just boils down to creating a caloric deficit. And you can create a caloric deficit in many, many ways.
Right.
You can create a caloric deficit by eating low carb. You can create a caloric deficit by eating low fat. You can create a caloric deficit by doing intermittent fasting. But what is essential to understand is that those tactics did not cause the weight loss. Intermittent fasting does not cause weight loss. Low carb does not cause weight loss. What it does is it helps you to create a caloric deficit, and the caloric deficit is what causes the weight loss. And when you can understand that, you're able to step back from all the fads. You're able to step back from keto. You're able to step back from paleo. You're able to step back from clean eating and understand that it's not a one size fits all. That what it comes down to is that caloric intake. Now, I teach people to count macros, and I think that for many people, macro counting is a really valuable period of time. I don't believe that macro counting should last your entire life. I think that you should do it for a period of time, because what it teaches you is the macronutrient breakdown in your food. So macros are carbs, fat, and protein, and it is what makes up the calories of your food. And so by taking time to track that and understand how much you're eating and how much your body needs of those 3 different macronutrients, you're able to create a plan that fits you, that fits your body and the goals that you have, and that can be tweaked and modified and adjusted to fit you rather than just a blanket eat low carb statement.
Right.
And so that's the biggest thing, is understanding that there is a science behind weight loss, and it's not magical, and it's not like this secret thing. It is creating a caloric deficit and finding the least restrictive, the least miserable way for you to create that caloric deficit. If you're looking for fat loss, that is the way that I would, suggest you going. And we get really hung up on all the fads, and my sister's doing keto and she lost 20 pounds. And the other thing that we really lose sight of is the fact that it doesn't matter how fast you lose the weight. if you can't keep it off.
Right.
And that's what I see a lot of times with fad diets, with like keto, is they're like, well, my sister lost 30 pounds on keto. And you're like, great, but let's look at her in 3 months.
Right.
And oftentimes they regain that weight back. And if it's, and that isn't a success to me. And hopefully it's not a success to people listening, right?
Right.
I think we intellectually know that, but then we jump on these things because we think that they're fast.
Yes.
And it's not always about fast. It's about sustainable.
Yes, totally. Which goes back to what you first started when we're talking about fitness and weightlifting and all of that. It has to be sustainable. And I love that you said you're not going to be living counting your macros, because that's unsustainable.
Right.
It's a matter of educating yourself, understanding, because I feel like with the whole quick fix, it's like, tell me what to do so that I don't have to think. But then what are you going to do once that
I want you to think.
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do once, you get sick of it, or you're on vacation, right? Special circumstances happen. How are you going to survive?
Yeah. And I tell my clients that counting macros is like training wheels. Like it helps you to like have a little bit of like balance, find out where moderation is. That's the other thing. Like, I believe in moderation, but for so many people, they're like, I don't know what moderation is. Like, they either go to one side or the other.
Right.
It's either all clean eating or it's like all junk all the time. And finding that moderation for a lot of people, they need some guidelines.
Yes.
And so counting macros can be like training wheels, where it gives you some guidance, but you're not going to live the rest of your life in training wheels. Like, eventually I want you to take those training wheels off, and now you're going to know where that balance point is, and you're going to be able to feel that balance now and be able to ride without the training wheels.
Yes. Oh, I love that analogy. You have the best analogies. I love that. So tell us, what is it like working with you? How does it work? Because I do want you to tell us how to reach you and what kind of free resources you have and all of that. But what does it look like?
Yeah. So for a lot of years, I did a lot of one-to-one coaching, and I've kind of moved my business model a little bit more to like a one-to-many coaching. And so I run group programs, and I run a 12-week program called Ditch the Diet. And I open that a couple times a year, and I take a group of women and we run through this program. And my focus is on what I say is tactics and strategy. So a lot of times people just want to focus on the how-to, right? They want to learn to track macros. They want to like have a meal plan. They want to like do the, X, Y, and Z exercise, and they just want to follow that. And what I feel like is really missing is the mindset piece. Right. And the fact of like who you are is what got you to the place that you are right now in your life, wherever that is. And so we actually have to create transformation from the inside out. So many people try to attack it from the outside in. They say, okay, I'm going to lose the weight and that's going to like transition me as a person. Yeah. Whereas we really need to focus on the transition from the inside out. So that's what we do a lot through the 12 weeks is we both have the tactics, which is like teaching you how to count macros, teaching you how to create a workout plan, teaching you how to do all the tricks and tips and things and stuff. But a huge part of it is mindset, what you're saying to yourself, how you're speaking to yourself, what you believe is possible for yourself, how you're setting goals. And so we spend a lot of time in group coaching settings going over that and making sure that that's a really important part of your transformation so that it is sustainable long-term for you. So that's a big thing that I do with clients. I set custom macros and I do have some one-on-one clients, but Ditch the Diet is my biggest thing. And it's what I love to do with women because they have so many aha moments during those 12 weeks. Yeah, where they recognize that things are shifting for them and how they view themselves and how they view their bodies is shifting. And that to me is a win, regardless of how many pounds you lose.
Definitely.
12 weeks, like that's the shift because that's going to continue past the program. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing. I do have some free resources that if people are like, oh, I've never heard of this counting macros or I want to learn more about it. I have two free resources. One is just like a kind of overview of what is macros, what is macro counting, why is it important. If you go to bicepsafterbabies.com/macros, you can download that. Nice. And then if you're like, okay, cool, I want to try this out. I want to, set my macros and like try it out. Then you can go to bicepsafterbabies.com/set-my-macros. And I have a guide there that'll walk you through exactly how to set your macros.
Awesome. Okay. So people can definitely find you on the website and your Instagram is Biceps After Babies as well.
Yep. And I'm on Facebook at Biceps After Babies. We have a Facebook group, my Biceps After Babies ladies. And Just type in biceps after babies and you'll find me.
Find Amber. Amazing. Yep. Oh, I loved our conversation. I love all about the mindset, because that's totally what I'm all about too. You have to make the change from the inside out, because that's what's sustainable, right?
Yeah.
If you just change the outside, if you just paint it and try to fix it up, it's not going to change what's inside, which ultimately is going to reflect on the outside. So
yeah.
that's
and one more thing. I just forgot. I launched a podcast.
Oh, you did? That's amazing.
About 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
So if your listeners are interested, you come over to Biceps After Babies Radio for a podcast. And what I dive into there is a lot of the mindset stuff.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I started a podcast, because you can't, it's not bits and pieces that you can do with the mindset stuff. It's a lot of deep stuff. And so I focus, I have some episodes. I have an episode about, learning to count macros, episode number 2, but I also dive into the mindset stuff that I want you to know and I want you to start to implement. And I've had some really good feedback from that. So Biceps After Babies Radio.
That's great. Well, we'll definitely check it out. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was such amazing information and great encouragement for the new year, right?
Awesome.
Start making changes.
Thanks for having me.
So are you encouraged to improve your health for the new year yet? Whether you are motivated to get started for your own self or to be an example for your kids, take action. Think about your future and all of the things Amber mentioned here. I'm so happy you tuned in. Thank you for your support. And please don't forget to leave the show a rating and write a quick review. It'll help us so much with exposure and reaching more mamas out there. Also, take a screenshot of the episode, share it on social media, and tag us. Until next time, bye.